you crying right now?
No, I am sweating. Listen. Okay, are we? Is
Okay.
this? Are
Yeah,
is
we're
this
on.
are we doing the thing?
Should I begin?
We
I'll
could
just-
begin. We don't have to. I was dying. I'm like, if Kim could witness the preparation that guests go through to get ready for real. It's
Okay, now talk to me about that, because first of all, there's no prep needed for me.
my glasses are steaming up. I'm indoors by myself. This is a problem. This is
You live in a warmer climate. Maybe it's the climate.
No, this is my clue that it's time to. All right, let's get the workout regimen. If I'm winded from walking outside of the shed.
That's hilarious. Well, I'm getting you up really early. I just want to say that again. I don't talk to people with lip gloss at this hour of the day. And I know you didn't have to put on lip gloss, but every other part of it you probably had to do. You had to comb your hair, you had to have your coffee, and you're here.
Do the things. Oh, well, thank you. Oh,
Well
so
done.
here's what's happening. This is why
Okay.
I was late. I was looking for a 9-volt battery. Okay, because I had
Because it's Back to the Future.
yeah, well, okay, so my office is in a tough shed in my backyard.
Yes.
That's where we're currently at. This is the entertainment business for you. I'm literally in a 7-foot by 9-foot shed right now.
Yeah, but look at you. All the people need to go to YouTube, because you look like you're in a professional studio in Burbank.
I'm so adjacent to a chicken coop right now. It's unbelievable. So I come out to the shed and I was already running late, but this is one of the problems of having your office at your house is you always feel like you don't need as much
100%.
time.
Same.
And so I'm running outside. I'm like, I got to get out there. I got to, and I was just traveling, so I didn't have my computer set up. So I'm like, got to go set up the stuff. I come out and we have a padlock on our shed that's like one of those key codes.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
you can
yeah.
feel cool
Yeah.
and not have to have a key. But the batteries died on it. And
You
so
couldn't get into your own shed.
Yes. Yeah. And meanwhile, all of a sudden we have like a monsoon going on. Like we don't get rain here, and it's insanely pouring down all of a sudden. So I'm standing in the rain and I'm trying to you can bypass it it felt like an escape room I was trying to break into.
Yeah. Only you own it.
Yeah.
Taylor, why didn't you text me in the rain or under shelter and say, I'm late?
I was a little bit busy, Kim.
Okay. Point taken. Maybe not in the moment. I'm just saying, there's no pressure here. You could have waited. You're sweating.
I told you it's because I was so excited. This legit is the one thing I have on my calendar today. This is it.
Okay, well, right back at you, because I woke up this morning and said to my own self, today is today. I was so happy. Thank you for joining me on For Real in your sweaty, steamy moment.
I know. It is great. The steam is great. Look,
you're doing great.
Listen, you know how life just gives you a little reminder that maybe you need to do things a little differently.
Yeah.
My priorities when it comes to fitness and health are a little off. And the biggest clue I got recently is someone asked me, they're like, if you could have a time machine and go anywhere in all of history, where would you go? And my first thought was I'd go back 3 years to when Soup Plantation was still open.
Okay.
If I could have a time machine and travel anywhere, I just want to go to a buffet I miss. What the heck is wrong with me, Kim?
I need an inhaler. That is an alarming data point. So yeah, I'm gonna go with you that maybe let's open the vista. In addition to the plantation, the buffet coming back, there are other times.
There's other things.
Or maybe you just really love great food, and I am with you on that.
Oh my gosh. That
was great.
That might be the best and worst time. Imagine if someone has discovered time travel, but they're keeping it to themselves just so they can go to I really miss Mervin's. You know what I mean?
I don't know, this might be Midwestern, but we had Bonanza. Did you have Bonanza?
No, that sounds like a buffet. Is that a buffet?
It is. It was. Forever will be. And when I said the word just now, my stomach became leaden because I mean, we loved it and
What
we were not helpful for their bottom line, our family of five.
what was the thing? Because there's always a thing at a restaurant that when you think of that
Yeah.
restaurant, what you really want is
Uh-huh.
that entree or
Yeah.
whatever. What was the thing they had on the buffet that you remember
Well,
going crazy about?
I was always very fascinated as a child by the ham carvers. I'm sure that's their official title.
Yes. Well, they
In the
had that
toe
one.
cat.
They had like
Uh-huh.
the one medieval glove that they would
Yep.
have, so that yeah.
And a yellow light, which
Yes.
hypothetically was warming the 48-day-old ham that they had been shaving off for aeons.
Yeah.
I was into that, but I was always kind of a carb person, get
Yeah.
some rolls, all rolls. I loved all the rolls, cinnamon rolls. I loved the
Yeah.
yeasty rolls. What's
Yep.
your what was the what calls you over time to the plantation buffet?
They had
So-
this is so silly, but they had a chicken noodle soup that
oh,
it was like the thick grandma noodles.
yes.
I'm not
I know just
not-
what you're talking
yeah,
about.
yeah, they're called grandmother's noodles, or that you can buy
the
them
thick
frozen.
ones. Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
I didn't mean like a thick grandma. Like you want to know, like this grandma knows she eats a lot of noodles. She knows. I don't want to
She
grandma
has
shame
beta
her.
tested.
Yeah, she
Yeah,
has.
don't offend the grandmas.
Yes.
Taylor, there are grandmas listening. So maybe thick
Yes.
ones for all we know.
Maybe, hopefully.
Yeah, they're
There's
usually the
less
best
now
ones.
that soup plantations closed down. We gotta fend for ourselves out in these streets.
Oh
Stewart,
my gosh, this is so great.
is this the hard hitting content? that
Journalism we're
people-
looking for? Actually, yes. Listen, Taylor, I have a couple questions for you not related to yeasty rolls.
Okay.
First, will you catch us up? Because Taylor Hughes, the last time you were on this particular podcast, when it was a fledgling baby podcast, you were one of my very, very first guests. In fact, I feel that if I would go back in time in my own memory, which is sketchy at best, but I feel like you probably made me do this. I think you and Bob were the ones who were like, I don't know why you don't have a podcast. To which I probably said, what even is it? And what do I
Yeah.
do? And then you were
Yeah.
kind enough to be a guest. And since that time, I wrote down a few points. I have bullet points here. What you have done since we last talked on air, which
Okay.
was like 3 years ago.
Okay.
You have embarked on, I believe, at least 2, is it 3 bus tours across the nation?
We've done 2.
2.
Yeah, that was wild.
Yeah.
Again, all crazy projects lead back to Bob.
It's true. It's true. He has a wonderful sense of imagination and adventure, and we love it. A new YouTube special, solo
Mhm.
tours, performances, a one-man show that I attended in LA, and I cannot wait to talk about that. And you wrote a book. This is in the last 24 to 36 months, Taylor. Maybe
Yeah.
the reason you're steaming today is because you are relentlessly launching beautiful things into the world.
Oh.
So,
Ye-
what about that? And here's my question. What keeps you going for that? Why aren't you a bank teller, which would be much
Oh.
more consistent in terms of hours and pay,
Yeah.
but is nothing like the things I just mentioned? What keeps you going?
I'll tell you what, I had a conversation with Katie recently. We've, all these projects sound great when you see them on social media and you're like, wow, how lucky. But people don't see all the chaos
Mm,
and heartache and the things that didn't happen or didn't work. And there was a time recently, which we have talked about off mic, it was a hard thing that we went through.
yeah.
And I remember I told Katie, my wife, I was like, babe, I am going to get the most boring day job. I am going to have not even an office. I'm going to have one of those half partition walls where you can you just do this and you can see what everyone else is doing. I'm going to have one of those. Like I sometimes, I think people who always have something that they've wanted to do, but they haven't done it, they kind of dream of doing a big project. And then I think when you spend a lot of time, creatively gluing macaroni to plates and going, is this what you guys want? I think you kind of dream of like, wouldn't it be like sometimes at the coffee shop, I'm just like,
Yeah.
wouldn't it be great just to be a barista? Like that'd
Right.
be kind of great.
Totally.
I bet they leave and they don't think about
Yeah.
the coffee.
100%.
So the next day.
I am so glad you are starting with this after the plantation rolls and the steaming, because that is one of the things I love to chat about. I think you're right that a lot of that, if we just look at the feed of what
Right.
you've been doing, you make it, and it's not that there's no artifice there. We're just also excited about all of these things for you and your seamless ability to be funny and smart and go do a show and hop on a plane, and you're funny on a plane. And you're right that not most people don't see that behind the scenes, a lot of people have a team, like a gigantic team making these things happen, or B, like the mere mortals we are, we're hustling, man. I mean, there are a lot of things that don't work, but you still do it, and you aren't a barista. So any thoughts on why? I know you told Katie you were going to quit and work at Starbucks, but why not? What keeps you moving?
I ever since I was a kid, when I was a little kid, like I was always making something. Like we would be building a stunt show in our backyard with the neighbor kids, or
I can see that.
people to come, or making booby traps to hurt my sisters with.
I love it. Perfect.
And I don't know. I think so much of life is not tangible. Like, especially when you're doing work where you're trying to make an impact or a difference. And, we both grew up with this idea of like, we need to change the world to make the world a better place. Well, that stuff's not always tangible. And so I think I envy people who have, honestly, more difficult jobs where they go and will like build a wall or build, they're like at the end of the day, they're like, look, I did a thing and now that thing exists. And so I think for me, I'm always trying to think of like, what is something I can make that is actually will exist and just be a thing that's there. It's kind of a reminder of the milestones and the markers of where you're at, of like, oh, we actually have done a couple of things, and I don't know. It's just
I'm sending you the list of all the things you've done. Yeah. In case you forgot, because that's the other thing. I think in our line of work, yours is a little different from mine, but pretty similar. I think my instinct is to move to the next thing without allowing myself this moment of, man, we did that. I did that. Thanks God for pulling me through that. And I did I'm so forward focused sometimes that I don't take the second. And so as your friend, I'm sending you this list later today. So you have quantifiable things that you can say, yeah, I built those things. It's not the stunt course in your backyard anymore, but man, it's really cool. What you're doing is so, so cool. And I love it. I'm serious. Oh, that's only just beginning.
I am a little bit concerned that when I was trying to come up with an example of a job I appreciate, I said literally said the phrase "build a wall," and I'm a little nervous that people think that is like a
not that kind of wall.
Okay, I just want to clarify.
I definitely took it towards you wanted to be a general contractor.
Okay, good. Thank you. Sure. Thank you. Then we can edit this part out instead of that part.
Definitely not going in that direction.
You know who my heroes are. Anyway. Okay, now I've really
listen. No, actually, when you said that, you think about being a barista. I think about when I'm starting to get fussy about not feeling like I'm really building anything, or I get frustrated with my work, or I feel like, man, I'm just spinning my wheels. You know what I want to do? Paint my house. This happens fairly frequently, that I start fantasizing in fact, Mark's nervous right now because every room is bothering me, with the exception of the kitchen, which I painted last year. Okay. Every other room in the house, I'm like, oh, I hate the colors in this room. And he gets a little twitchy. He's like, can you wait until after a book release? I'm like, no, this would be a perfect time to take on a gigantic project. And the reason is there's a beginning, middle, and end for painting a room. And you can stand in it and think, wow, I did this and it's done. That's not what our work is.
Well, and the compression of time of how quickly it goes from being an idea to you go buy the paint,
Yes.
then you tape things off, and within a couple of days it's like
True.
you had the idea and now it's done, as
Mm.
opposed to, you had an idea for a book
A
and you pitched
million
the book,
years
and
ago.
then yeah, and that's another thing I think too, because you talk about like sometimes we're always thinking about the next thing. I think as people who are making projects, by the time the project is where you need to tell people about it, you're so sick, not sick of the thing, you
No,
love it,
totally, totally,
but you
totally.
feel like, oh, this is all I've been thinking
Mm-hmm,
about or
mm-hmm.
talking about. And we both have books coming out, and I was telling someone yesterday, I'm like, I'm really good at making things and I'm really bad at telling people about the things I make.
So true.
So now
I
I'm like
am
3
with
weeks away
you.
and going like, I should
Say
probably
something.
say something.
I totally identify with that. I just said to my friend Anne the other day, "Hey, can you read this book?" And she has read it once. She's on my team and she's amazing. And
Yeah.
but I seriously said, I am coming up a little empty on what are talking points about this book that I wrote, because
Yeah.
it's so familiar to me. It'd be like
Yeah.
someone saying, "What do you think are some of the greatest things about your kid?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh my gosh, what? I can't go that granular level." Okay,
Well, and this is why, I was just gonna say, this is
no,
why
go.
you need other people. Like I have
Yes.
my Kim who works with me. We've been family friends for
Yeah.
100 years, and
She's
she's
lovely.
brilliant. But she also, like, you need people who know what it is that you're wanting to do, and they know you, and you also
Yes.
need people to be like, come on, like this is not what you want to do, or like
Hmm.
I wouldn't be able to do anything without Kim or without Katie, like just being able
Right.
to kind of point me in the right direction when I'm going, what am I doing?
Has there ever been a time when either of those women, you've been super excited about something and they have pulled the reins and said that would not be wise? Has there ever been a time when they needed to be the ones to say, no?
Oh yeah. Oh
Oh,
yeah.
are you
Yeah,
like
for sure.
this week?
Yeah, well, and it's easy. I think there's moments when everything's going well and it's
Yeah.
real easy to go, this, you know what, we're going to say yes to this, we're going to say no to that. And then something comes up and an opportunity comes up that is not a bad opportunity, but it doesn't really line up with what you're wanting to
Right.
put out in the world, but maybe there's some dollars associated with it.
Right.
And it's real easy to forget what you committed to do and to not
Right.
do. And so that's one thing. Like I have Kim who works with me directly, and then my wife Katie. Both of them have veto power on anything.
That's
Like
awesome.
so, that's been helpful. That's been helpful to be able to not constantly going like, should I do this? Should I not do
Yeah.
this?
Right.
Kind of figure out together what we want to build, and then don't let yourself be the one making all the decisions.
Right. No, let other people into that room for sure.
Yeah.
Um, Taylor, we're aging. And
right now it's happening
in this very moment. And I'm wondering, as we age, this is definitely true for me, but I wonder about for you. Are there people that you look to? I mean, you mentioned Katie and Kim as being kind of compatriots on that road, but
Yeah.
are there any people that you find yourself looking to frequently for how to navigate this stage? And I'm talking, this could be professionally you're an amazing dad and husband. As a human being, like how are there other people I'm sure it's a small group, it is for me,
Yeah.
that you're thinking, yeah, that person, I think this would work if I would just try to do some of that character stuff that person's doing. Do you have people like that?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like and you're right, it is a very small group. I mean,
Yeah.
I've got our mutual friend Bob has been
Mhm.
probably the biggest voice um when it comes to like both professionally and then like personally things that have impacted us in the last 10 years.
Mhm.
But then I have a very small group of friends who are in a similar career path. So like I have
Okay.
a friend who's a comedian who travels a bunch and understands, but is also a dad
Mhm.
and a husband, and trying to navigate, how do you you do all these things that you're committed to doing
Right.
and be the person you're committed to being, and also just like not burn out, you know?
Right.
So I think you have to have people who understand. You need a shorthand with people who understand what it's
Uh-huh.
like. Just like you and I can talk about projects and
Yep.
go like, we don't need to explain. Well, see here, I am excited.
Right. Right.
But I'm also terrified, and I'm also, I feel like I'm the only person that can do this, and simultaneously feel like, well, like, who am I to
Everyone
do
else has
this?
done
Yeah.
this. Yes.
So I feel like you need people who get your
Yeah, that's
world.
true.
And years ago when I was on staff at a church, like that schedule was so different. Like my extended family didn't get why we're never at birthday parties. You can't plan a party on a Sunday and expect us to be there. You
Right.
know what I mean? It's just not going to
Right.
happen. In the same thing now in this kind of season of life, doing what we do now, you need people who understand it and who you don't have to constantly be explaining where you're coming from.
Mm.
I found that having one or two or three voices like that can really just remind you like, hey, you're what you're feeling right now is exactly what you should be feeling.
Yes.
That's not, you're not crazy.
Mhm.
you know
Totally.
yeah, I
Yeah,
find it
that's
very
good.
helpful. I mean,
I
how many times do I call you and go, Kim, I don't
same.
need anything, I just have to say this because no one else understands this
Yeah.
thing.
No, same.
um,
I do that to you as well. Most recently, about 10 days ago. We're coming back to that call. Um, yeah, I love that idea of shorthand. There's
yeah
something really powerful in the shorthand when you don't have to do the preamble
yeah
and you don't have to explain not just your motivation, but who you are and how you're not this, but you are this. That is, man, that's such a gift.
Mhm.
Okay, I want to talk about your new book. You have a new project, Taylor. I don't know if
I
you're remembering. It's a new
do.
book. And I'm so excited about it. And I got to read an early copy, which is one of the perks of being your friend. And your new book is about misdirection.
Yes.
This is a very interesting idea that you have pulled from your professional work as a magician, or as you like to say to the Baptists, an illusionist.
So when people get nervous before they see what it is.
So true. Listen, I get it. I grew up in the era of Power Team. Okay,
Oh,
we can,
yes.
yeah.
Yes.
So as a professional, one of your principal jobs is to misdirect me and to misdirect the audience, right? So you make us see or not see what you want. And I love this. I am actually totally down for this. As you know, I have seen you perform many, many times. Have I ever asked you how to do a trick?
No.
No,
You don't
because
want to know.
I don't want to know. I love not knowing. I love the wonder and the mystery. And I love watching you do your thing and think, oh my gosh, he just totally fooled me again. And I love that. I love the suspension of disbelief. I don't even read the backs of books. I don't want to know what the book is about. I don't really even need to know about what a movie is. If you tell me it's a good movie, I'll just go. So I'm that camp. But you make a really powerful argument that misdirection can be very dark. And I'm wondering first how you decided to camp on this idea, because as you and I both know, when you write a book, you alluded to this, you spend, rounding down, 8 million hours with this idea, and you could have picked any. So why this?
I am obsessed with wonder. We've talked about it exhaustively. I feel like nowadays we're so used to knowing things and having access to answers and information and carrying supercomputers in our pocket that there's something really beautiful and powerful about showing somebody that they don't have it all figured out. Not in a way where it's like, look what I can do that you can't do.
Right.
But in a way that reminds us, oh, number one, not only do we not have it all locked down and we can still grow and learn, but also just because we don't know something doesn't mean that we couldn't learn it or know it or discover it. So in a magic show or in a performance of a trick, misdirection is beautiful because we sign up. You sign up when you go to a magic show. You go, I know this person's going to fool me, but I also know they're doing it to give me something, not to take something from me. And there's a difference between being misdirected when you sign up for it, when you buy a ticket to a magic show, versus you don't always expect to be misdirected when you go into a meeting at the office, or you walk into a situation where you're going to purchase a new home, or you sit in a pew on Sunday morning. Like we just assume in
Right.
every other scenario that people are on our behalf, when in reality, the only people that are misdirecting that are on your behalf are the magicians who tell you honestly, I'm going to lie to you, but it's to give you something. Every other place misdirection is stealing from us. So I I've just noticed, I think everybody has noticed a shift and a change culturally to where
Mm,
I don't know, over the last 4 or 5 years, it just seems like what's real, what's not, who do I trust, who are the experts, what, who's on my behalf, who's just trying to like pull the wool over my eyes,
right.
and not in a weird conspiracy sort of way, just in the whole idea of even like now with AI, it's like the lines are getting blurred between
Hmm.
illusion and reality across the board in our world. And I think if we can use magic as a metaphor, if I can teach you a simple magic trick and then explain
Which
how
you
that,
do in the books.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and then
it's
explain how
amazing.
that.
I don't read those sections because I don't want to
Did
know.
you not? Did you
But
not read them?
no,
No,
I
I
don't
love it.
know. But I think a lot of people will absolutely be all over that. I have 4 people of the 5 in my house who'll be all about that. So you lift the veil on some of those tricks.
Yeah, so I feel like I'm rambling now, but
You're
basically
not.
the whole premise of the book is I've spent my entire life studying how to deceive people for entertainment.
Hmm.
But I've noticed how the same techniques I use to give you something have snuck into how we do business with each
Mm-hmm.
other, how we treat our neighbors, what happens at church on Sunday morning. Unfortunately, sometimes what happens when
Mm-hmm.
you go to the polling booth and or when you're going to vote. And so I think just this book is not about getting people to think a certain way. It's just about getting people to ask more questions
Mm-hmm.
and to not take things at face value and to realize that if something feels off, misdirection might be right there around the
Right.
corner if we're not careful.
I felt when reading your book, and sometimes when I hang out with you, like a naive little magician, because
No.
you spot it from a mile away. There's this great piece in the book where you talk about Vegas,
Mm,
and you peel back the layers of a street performer, a street magician that had, we've all been there, not just
yeah,
Vegas, but people coming around, watching the shell game, watching whatever. We're
right.
completely in. And you say that's not unlike buying a car.
Yeah,
And you make a very powerful argument about that. So talk to me about first, why are we so easily duped? And when I say we, I mean me.
yeah.
Um, and what should we be watching for? And I'd love for you to talk about Vegas because for the average person, we don't know what they're doing. What are they doing?
Yeah. Well, okay, so there's a game that's played in Las Vegas and it's played in New York and California and Chicago, and it's not played in the casino, it's played on the street out front
Right.
of the casino. And it's usually someone will have a overturned trash can they're using as a table or a upside down cardboard box. And sometimes they've got 3 different playing cards they're mixing up. Sometimes they've got 3 cups and there's a ball under it. Sometimes they use 3 halves of a walnut and a pea. It's called different names. It's called the Monty. It's called Find the Lady. But whatever it's called, whatever they're using, it's presented as a game that you can win.
Right.
And the entire thing is orchestrated to where you cannot win. To down to the point where you'll walk up onto the scene and you'll see somebody throwing the cards, and someone else will walk up in a nice business suit and they'll drop $100 down, they'll bet, they'll win, and they'll walk away, and everyone's like, that guy, I saw what
I
that
could
guy
do
just saw.
that.
I could do that.
Mm-hmm.
And so you bet, and what you don't realize is that the person throwing the cards has studied the same skills magicians use to entertain with card tricks. But this is not a game of chance. It is every move is orchestrated and
Mm.
choreographed to make sure you leave without your money. And the person you saw win and walk away is an accomplice
Oh my
of the
gosh.
of the person who is
Sure.
there running the Monty. The whole idea is to draw you in and to get you to think, oh, this is good for you,
Right.
and then it switches.
Yeah.
And so the question is, where else is that happening in life? And
Mm-hmm.
in that section, I really talk about, sometimes we're misdirected by others, and it's easy to look at the guy throwing the cards and being like, oh, that guy's cheating people. But sometimes it's our own selfishness, our own desire to win quick or get
Mm.
rich scheme that clouds our vision. And I shared a vulnerable moment of going to a car dealership, and we're like, we're just going to look around. And I had convinced myself that I'm not buying a car, but everything about this experience was tailored to get me to a point where I feel like not only is this the car for me, but I feel like I made that decision all on my own.
That's
and
it. Yeah.
And then sometimes we spend, my father-in-law was the one who said, like, people have to, he told me, he said, people have to convince themselves after the fact that they made the right decision. So when someone buys a new car, all they can talk about, this car is so great. And oh yeah, it's like, you buy a new car and you never noticed that car before, but now that's all you see because you're trying to convince yourself, not only did I make the right decision, all these other people made the right decision.
Right.
And that's, it's one thing when it comes to buying a car. It's another thing when it comes to, how we treat other people or how we're interacting with our neighbors, or are we giving people in our businesses the opportunity to grow and to develop, or are we taking advantage of them and manipulating them? And so the book just unpacks different ways that can kind of sneak in if we're not careful.
We're very good convincers to ourselves, I think. I think we are very excited to write narratives post event to help us decide that we did the right thing. And I think your argument is take 1 second or 50 and think about that a little bit more critically. I have to ask before we leave, find the lady, which is definitely something I'm going to throw around to my teenagers tonight.
It's maybe not the best name. That's usually when there's like two aces or two kings, and then there's a queen, like the queen of hearts.
Didn't know. I thought maybe it was the P. Anyway,
no.
Or the Monty. When you see that in real life, in your own life, as just a spectator or person walking down the street, is it hard for you not to go up to the people around the Monty players and say, you shouldn't do that?
It's a very dangerous thing to interfere because
it?
Yeah. There was a gentleman recently who is how do I keep this vague? There's a place in LA where a lot of magicians hang out. And down the street, it's Hollywood Boulevard. And this game is played a lot on Hollywood Boulevard. And this young kid who was kind of newer to the group and was learning a lot about magic, he thought, he performed a version of this in his stage show, and he thought, hey, I'm going to go and I'm going to play and I'm going to see if I can catch these guys and I can win some money. And because as a magician, you know exactly where the cards are when they're convincing everyone else they're somewhere else. And so he won, and the guy's like, why don't you play again? And he's like, no, I'm good. And he walked away, and he was attacked by friends of the guy throwing the Monty. So there's a lot of stories
this took
people,
a turn.
There's a lot of stories of people who are, they get in trouble. They get in trouble for interfering with somebody's
So you don't
livelihood.
You walk right on by. No interfering. Okay, that's good to know. Wow, I've lived such a quiet life. I've never been attacked by a writer ever. No one. You used that same metaphor in chapter 4. I will attack you. I'm jumping you with my fellas. That's very dramatic.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, Taylor, you tell us, and you actually already just tiptoed into this. You say the antidote to misdirection is asking more questions.
Yeah.
But not of the Monty people. In general, asking more questions.
Yeah.
So I think coach us on that, because that seems like something I can do.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things you had said just a moment ago is that we sometimes misdirect ourselves. We get to a point a question I like to ask people is, when was the last time you changed your mind about something? And it could be as simple as, I used to not like grilled onions and now I love grilled onions, but it's harder as we get older in life to change our mind about things that are important issues, because especially politically or spiritually, if you change your mind, and by changing your mind, you realize I've maybe been approaching this the wrong way, or maybe the way I think, I've always thought I'm a compassionate person, but I realized this belief or this association with this organization or with this political person or whatever, like that has kept me from loving people like I think I love people. it can be hard to change your mind, because then you have to deal with the fact that for years I've not
Right.
been as loving or compassionate. And so um this is why I think it gets harder as we get older to
Mm,
change our opinions. And people say they get, you got set in your ways. And sometimes I think it's not because we can't see that there's a different way to do it, but it's just so painful sometimes to
wow.
admit that maybe I am not, maybe I've been wrong.
Right.
And I think that's a great thing to do, is just ask yourself those questions of like, where in my life might I be wrong? And if
Right.
I am, what are the consequences of that? And when was the last time I looked at this from a different angle, in a different
Mm-hmm.
perspective?
Mm-hmm.
I think I'll say this. I think sometimes we assume that we have examined a topic and we've solidified our decision.
Mm.
Um, but there's a thing in magic called dual reality, where I could I don't have a playing card here, but literally I go over here and I show this person a playing card and I say, go ahead and take a look at this card. Great. You see it? And then I go over here and I say, and you take a look at it. Great. And then I show it to the audience. I just showed everybody a different card, but everybody didn't see the card they saw. It looked like nothing changed. Right. But this guy saw a 6 of hearts and this guy saw a jack of spades, and the audience assumes they both saw the same thing.
Huh.
And the same thing is happening when we go online and we look at Facebook, and we see, how many times have someone said, oh, did you see that thing on Facebook? No, because the version of social media you see has been curated to your likes, your
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
dislikes, your interests, your passions, your right. And so I think sometimes we think, oh, we're seeing everything everyone else is seeing, and we've just come to this decision. And sometimes there's a totally different lens we can look at
Right.
something through, if we'll just realize, hey, we don't have it all figured out.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite starter phrases is, I could be wrong, but
Yeah.
just start it out. Start the conversation with that.
Yeah.
I might be wrong. I could very easily be wrong. I am often wrong. I like
Yeah.
saying that.
Yeah.
I like saying it for the listener, but I really love it for me. I'm
Yep.
often wrong. Please help me understand. I say that a
Right.
lot when I'm in a good place. I would also say I think the longer I live, Taylor, the more I see humility as the superpower of all superpowers.
Yeah.
I think that's the gig. That's where I
Yeah.
want to land
That's
every
so good.
time, which is so countercultural, right? I mean, not very many spaces publicly, if you're reading the news, if you're looking online, if you're looking at social media, most things that get the playtime are not humble things. But I
Right.
think that's actually top of mind.
Yeah.
I see that in my parents are very humble. And when you're talking about kind of reframing, recently my dad and I I partner with a group here called Joppa, and they make relationships with and come alongside folks who are dealing with homelessness.
Hmm.
And so my kids and I often on Sunday afternoons get to go and do some rounds of bringing food and playing. It's really stinking cold here.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
there are entire teams who go around bringing propane tanks during the winter, 2 tents. It's
Yeah.
really something. And I just get to come alongside. I have absolutely I'm grateful to know the folks who do this for real all the time. But my dad came once, and he was a dentist for years in our hometown, just retired. And he will hate it if he ever hears me talking about this. So I don't think he listens to this podcast, so
Okay.
don't worry about it. But Mom, don't tell him.
Mom listens.
Mom
Don't tell
does.
him.
Mom loves you and would like to extend another Thanksgiving invitation to you.
Let's go. Let's do it.
And your whole family. So my dad, I thought was so interesting. He had a lot of history of being very generous with folks who are on assistance for dental care.
Yeah.
And so he won't like me saying this, but I'm just
Okay.
going to say for decades, that has been part of his work.
Yeah.
And he got in the car after the first few stops and he said, I did not know that this level of need and poverty existed here. He said, I feel like I mean, he basically said what you're saying. I was wrong. I didn't know.
Mm,
Not that
yeah.
he had to do a huge correction. My point is he's 70 some and he had thought he knew what the poor in our city were dealing with. He had no idea.
Right.
I had no
Right.
idea that
Yeah.
in plain sight this was happening. And I loved that moment because it
Yeah.
reminded me this is where I'm headed. This is what I want. I
Yeah.
want to be 75 and to say, I didn't know. I thought I had a
Yeah.
handle on this, right? Like people
Right.
probably in his community and his professional community thought he had a handle on what does it look like to need something in Des Moines. Nope, no idea. And I loved it that he said it. So may
Yeah.
we be people like that, right? May we
Yeah.
say, I just didn't know. I didn't know. My view was not big enough. I didn't know what I didn't know. That's a really winsome way to live.
That's beautiful. And look at the impact that it had on you to
Right.
hear your dad say that as an adult, to hear your dad say that.
As an
And
adult.
I mean, I think as a little kid, it's hard because you're kids by nature question things. They question everything. They're constantly asking questions.
Right.
And what happened for me is I'm questioning and I'm wondering and I don't have anything figured out and I'm aware of what I don't know, but it seems like everybody else has it figured out.
Uh-huh.
And
Totally.
then as adults, you start talking to your friends and you're like, oh, you don't have it figured out either. And then we realize that like everybody is we're all going through life for the first time
Yeah.
together. You know,
Mhm.
you know what I mean?
Totally.
Unless you believe that this is round 2, but you know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Right.
but like
Right.
this, like I don't know what it's like to be. I just turned 43. I don't know what 43 is like. I'm
Right.
learning what 43 is like. You know, I'm learning what it's like to have an 18-year-old child. I'm learning what it's like to, you know, navigate a 15-year-old who's learning how to drive. Like I'm learning all these things. And I think that the more open we can be with each other of like, I don't have it all locked down.
Right.
Because I think we live in a world where everyone's pretending for the most part to have it all figured out. And then we sit quietly and feel like we're the only one who doesn't. And so your openness and willingness to ask questions is actually it's allowing other people to see that they're not the only one who needs to, you know, examine things. So
So good and true. And may I ask even more questions today? I have some for you, actually. Speaking of,
I don't have the answers.
I want to talk to you about. I'm watching our time, and I know you have other things to do, but I would just love to know a little bit about 2 spheres of misdirection.
Okay.
And then I got another humdinger. The first are.
By the way, can I just say, and for listeners, you already know, one of my favorite things about Kimberly Stewart is the fun words you use. You find words like humdinger and wallop, you know, like words that like people don't use these words. We have so many beautiful words. This is why you need a friend who's a real author, who like Kim, who are like,
oh my goodness, the man who wrote 2 books.
No, you use like real words, fun ones. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, that's called when everyone else was playing soccer, I was on the porch reading. So you can weigh whether or not that was a good decision. I don't know.
The word of the day is.
Yeah, exactly. I needed that for sure. Okay, 2 spheres: social media. Okay. And an election season. I want you to remember I live in Iowa. We are just coming through the caucuses. Praise Jesus. The circus has left town. No one cares about me again for 3.5 years. It's really great. For a while, people come up and down my street all day long. I'm not even joking. And I get a lot of mail. Yeah. Oh my gosh, probably 20 pieces of mail a day from different candidates. And then all of a sudden, immediately it stops and I throw a party in my heart.
Yes. Yeah.
But I'm saying we're going in to another season of that, and social media is connected to that. So since you've spent so much time thinking about how misdirection can be used to our peril and to our good in your work, not so good other places. How do we live through those 2 spheres, I guess, without total disillusioned misdirection? We can ask questions, right? So we can look, but tell me how to do that. Tell us how to do that.
I think, and this is one of the things that, again, like I said, this book is not a book of answers. It's a book of more questions. And so every chapter ends with, here's some questions to ask yourself. One of the things that I put in the book, because it's a thing I ask myself constantly, is when it comes to social media, first of all, how do I have a plan for how I'm going to use social media?
Mm,
I think one of the problems with first of all, I have seen beauty and connection and community through the internet in a way that like I never saw in person because of our ability to be accessible to everyone.
hmm.
And I've watched my 18-year-old daughter, who's an artist, develop this beautiful like community of people that she would have never been in contact with
Right.
if people weren't sharing their creative work and encouraging one another. And we've all seen the detrimental side of it as well. I think the big question for me is how, just like in any area of your life, if you look at, your health or your mental health or your work life or your family, like we approach everything with a lot of intention. And with social media, we tend to kind of just scroll aimlessly.
Mm.
Um, a, a rule that I have kind of tried to live by, and I'm not always great at it, is I try to make sure that I'm using it creatively and not just as a consumer.
Okay, talk to me
And
about that.
so um when my 18-year-old was first getting on, when she was younger, when she was first getting on social media and she wanted to share her art, I said, great,
Hmm.
you can use it to create and to share what you've created, but I don't want you just sitting there observing other people's lives all day long.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And so I think it's great to like uh think, what every time we interact on social media, we are changing the way social media is, right?
Mm.
It's like every time you interact in the office, you're changing the environment and the culture of that place. And so I think if we go on social media and we think about what is my interaction doing for the community as a
Uh-huh.
whole? Am I sharing things that are encouraging, that are
Yep.
hopeful, that are
Yep.
fun, that are
Yeah.
uplifting, that are inspiring?
This is good.
Or or am I just going on there and going like, I can't believe she wore that outfit to the Oscars? Like,
Right.
is that making the world a better place? You know what I
Probably
mean?
not. Yeah. Are
Um,
you contributing? Are you giving to
yeah.
something instead of just mooching?
Yes, I think
Yep.
if you look at social media if you approach it as this is our community online,
Okay.
um, if you walked into a room at work and you just complained about everything,
Mm-hmm.
that's not going to be a fun place for people to work.
Right.
And I think the uh there's another thing I talk about in the book is when I was a kid, there was like two movie critics that I knew. It was Siskel and
Siskel and
Ebert,
Ebert.
and then everybody else in the business was making things, but the people who made a living as a critic, there was like just a handful of people.
Right.
And now there's actually entire industry built around critique and reaction videos and reviews. And so um I think we need to just be intentional about what are we doing to add. People go like, oh, I go on Facebook and I just feel bad. Well, what can you do when you go on Facebook that's going to help someone else feel better?
Mm.
We can't really control all of it, but if we all start throwing a little encouragement in the pot, then overall I think we'll see a shift and a change. um and then
Great.
also just like, I mean, I steal watches in a magic show, and the same thing that I do to steal your watch is the same thing that happens to steal your time. Like if I wanted to take your watch, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to entertain you. I'm going to get you
Mm-hmm.
to relax. I'm going to get you to stop paying so much attention to yourself and to think about something else. Then I'm going to put you in a situation on stage that is not uncomfortable, but where you're thinking about everything I'm saying because you don't want to mess up, right?
Uh-huh.
You're self-conscious, so that you're not going to notice when I grab your wrist and take your watch because you're just focused on, I don't want to mess up. I want to do the right thing. And so if you realize like social media, it starts by, I'm going to go on here, it's going to be fun. And you're watching cat videos and you're entertained. And then you
Mm-hmm.
see an ad that makes you feel insecure. And then you have to keep paying attention because now it's going to tell me how to be accepted and how to feel better.
Just like classic. Yes.
And
Yes. Yes. You're right.
before you know it, your time is gone. The same way I steal a watch is the
Wow.
same way we lose hours, and your legs fall asleep because you're like, I've been here
Totally.
forever just looking. So,
Right.
um, social media, just being a little more intentional, just approaching it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we treat it like recreation, and it's not recreating ourselves. It's not
Mm.
giving you much. So it can, but you need to be even intentional about that. And are the things you're watching uplifting, encouraging, helping you see the world the way you want?
Mm.
Or are you just looking at stuff that makes you feel less good about people?
Less than. Yeah, totally. And you,
um,
um, Any wise words about entering another political season
Yeah. So,
and misdirection?
yeah. So I think the
Don't
biggest
you love
thing.
how I just like punted that to you and I'm
No,
not
it's great.
saying
And
anything?
it's a huge look. And again, I will say this again. I have very carefully written this book to not this book. I don't want this book to be full of my opinions.
It's not, and it
It's
doesn't set up camp anywhere. This is for all of humanity.
and it's because misdirection is a every person issue,
For
right?
sure.
Politically, it's not like oh, the Democrats are doing
Nobody's
this, oh,
clean.
the
Nobody's
Republicans are doing
clean.
that. Yeah. And that's one thing I want to encourage you is if everything you're hearing is pointing the finger at somebody else, um in magic, one of the definition of misdirection is getting you to look over here so you don't see what's happening over here.
Uh-huh.
And so, if the people that you're listening to on the news, on your trusted resources for political information, your candidates, if they're constantly pointing their finger at someone else, all that's doing is taking the attention off of them and answering the questions that we should be asking of, what is it that you're bringing to the situation that's going to make it better. The probably the most important thing I would say with politics is when I was a kid, my dad loved Chevys. And because he loved Chevys, he would talk about Chevys and how much he loved them, and he would point them out. And I could tell you the difference between a taillight on a 1953 Chevy versus a 54 Chevy. And I could tell you that this one had a certain visor that the other one didn't have, because he loved it and that's what he knew, he talked about it. But by only talking about this type of car, it made me by default just not like Fords. I didn't know anything about Fords. I never drove a Ford. I didn't know anyone who owned a Ford, but I just assumed Chevys are good, Fords are bad. I had done what a lot of us do with sports teams, where we pick a team and we go like, these people are good, these people are bad. And I think the same thing can happen politically, where we join a party or we join an ideology and we assume that any other thought or experience that doesn't line up with our thoughts and our experience we treat people like an enemy. And I think it's a good reminder to realize that anytime you have a system that's built on, here's two ideologies, and everybody on the planet is unique, their experiences are unique, who they are, what they want the world to be like. We're unique individuals, and yet we're like, you've got two options, fit fully into one of these things. Right. And not only fully support this, but attack fully anything hate that's not that.
Yeah, right.
And so I would say that if you have kind of a brand loyalty to any specific party or ideology or person, and you're not examining what else other people are saying, it's something to investigate. And also I will say too, it's interesting how often this happens in spirituality, and this also happens politically, where we are isn't it ironic that usually the way we believe the world should work and what's right and what's wrong happens to just benefit us to feel that way and to think that way, right? Like, if none of your beliefs politically or spiritually are inconvenient to you, right? Like I feel like if you believe to make the world a better place, there should be some sacrifice on your end. But if everything that you support is only things that make your, retirement look better, or that support this specific organization that you want to be, what I'm saying? Like, totally. If my beliefs about what makes right and wrong only make my life better, that's a huge red flag. That's something you should definitely examine. Like, I mean, and again, like spiritually, like I grew up in a faith that was all about sacrifice and laying down your life for the good of others and making the world a better place. And yet I feel like sometimes it can be so built around what's comfortable and what I'm used to and what I like, and not really about other people. And so I just think anytime you see those discrepancies, misdirection might be there. It's good to ask more questions.
Yeah. Let's talk about church.
Okay.
because even the things that you just said are so antithetical to what Jesus said. Jesus
Yeah.
was real big on discomfort.
Yeah.
He didn't actually say a whole lot about, blessed are the comfortable, you will remain comfortable.
Right.
He talked really differently.
Yeah.
You had a one-man show recently, we mentioned in LA, which I loved beyond loving. By the way, I was deathly ill that night and did not tell
I
you.
cannot believe, friends,
So,
I did
no,
a little skit and Kim and
it
Mark
was not
flew
a
out.
little skit.
They
Hold up.
flew
That was
out to
not a
come to
little
my
skit. Taylor, this was a show in process for years. I am so proud of you. I would not have missed it. Of course, we flew out, first of all. And second of all, it was not a little skit. It was 90 minutes. You guys, listen to me. 90 minutes, one man show. I think I was talking with our friend Stephanie afterwards, and I was like, I don't understand the level of what's the word? Amazingness, not a word, that is required of a person to hold the attention of a room packed with people, a theater packed with people for 90 minutes. You had not one script. Maybe you had notes that I couldn't see. You're the misdirection king. Anyway, it was phenomenal. It was such a beautifully written, beautifully
Oh, thank
performed
you.
show. And
Thank you.
it really was a kind of an unwrapping of this idea of misdirection in faith circles.
Yeah.
And you have a very personal story about that. I would love for you to say whatever you want about your experience. But I'd love for you also to weigh in on how we, for the people who are following Jesus who are listening right now, how we can and should expect better of each other when it comes to misdirection and faith.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you. First of all, like the fact that you guys were there it was unbelievable.
It's
It
total
meant
joy.
so
Wouldn't miss it.
much to me. So much to me. I spent years 13 years on staff at a local church. It was a large church, evangelical mega church, 10,000 members. I was there from the time I was 8 years old to the time I was 33 years old.
Sorry, I just got caught on 10,000 members. Holy smokes. It's a big church.
It was a lot. It was a big place. And some of the most impactful things in my life in a positive way happened there. And yet, as things more than we would like to admit happen, things got off track. I think that sometimes things that start really with a lot of great intention can get sidetracked. When a ministry starts and they don't have 10,000 people and big budgets and buildings and resources, it's all built on faith and loving people because that's all you got.
Right.
And then there's something that happens, and I think it happens in businesses as well that I've seen, where once you amass once you've built something, if we're not careful, we can forget what built that was community and love and all of this. And the attention goes from continuing to be what you said you wanted to be about to maintaining what you have. And then decisions shift from being about how can we reach people with this message to how do we hang on to the influence and the size of offerings and the attendance and all of that. And unfortunately, that's where things went at the church that I was at. I was for years I was involved in youth ministry, and we didn't really see, as when you're not deeply involved in an organization on a leadership level, you don't know why the decisions are being made. But we all, again, this is why this book, Misdirection and Asking Questions, I feel like is important, is we assume, and I was taught, we don't know everything, but leadership does, and they're making the right choices. And so we just trust that that's what's happening. And then at a certain point, my role shifted and was given more responsibility. And now overnight, I'm in all the meetings and I'm starting to see why the decisions are being made. And it wasn't us leaving that situation wasn't like we had a change of heart. It was realizing, what we say we're about and how we're actively living that out do not line up. So we say we're about loving the community, and we say we're about building Jesus. And what it turned out to be was a lot more about self-promotion and building a platform for individuals. And for a while after we left, I felt like, man, what a bummer that that unique, weird thing happened at our church where I had been since I was a kid. And then unfortunately, I've seen it, and we've all seen it. You know, it seems
Yeah.
like every week there's a new scandal in a church, whether it's, you know, the Hillsong or Southern Baptist or whatever. Like there's always something going on
Mm-hmm.
where it's like, how did this community or this specific, you know, part of the community get off track? And I think that getting to a point where we feel like we have all the answers, and we are selling certainty to people, we stop asking, are we really doing the things we say we're about? And so yeah, there's a whole chapter on misdirection in the church, and in some ways that maybe we can continue to safeguard our communities and look out for it. But I will say this too. I think there's a lot of hope. I have, for the last 10 years, I have continued to live out my faith and my beliefs in a different way. And not that the way I'm doing it is right or wrong. I just feel like there's a lot of people I've ran into who would never step foot into a church, who are very interested in the teachings of Jesus, but they just don't see them lived out in some of the places that they've been invited to. And so I think if we can get back to making it about people and community and less about programming and, you know, what is cool, then I think there's some hope there. So yeah, the book dives into that a bunch.
I think a case could be made that Jesus died because he exposed misdirection. He exposed rotten power. And so I think you're in the right, lane if you're looking in that direction, because he did. And he had very, very little good to say about people who wield the good news of freedom as a weapon, or just don't tell that whole story. So yeah, I think you're in a good position here, Taylor Hughes. I'm going to let you go, but before I do, I would like to look into your eyes and tell you, you are such a dear gift to me. I'm going to try not to cry. But I want to tell you, a couple of weeks ago, you called me, or I called you, can't remember which, and I was a little bit of a mess. I mean, you're going to probably have to go through the call log to think which mess call was this? But in that particular call, I was lining up for you a particularly busy time for our family. Things were going kind of off the rails with a few different things. But most of it was good off the rails. Like it was going to be bumpy to get there, but there were good destinations. And you were so kind to me. I don't even know if you remember this. You were so kind. You kind of paused and you said, I hope you can just enjoy all of the good things. I just hope you can enjoy that. It's not so crazy that you can't enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I got off the phone and I cried because I thought, I have been missing it. I've been so focused on the wrong thing. I have been absolutely misdirected by my own darn self. And you gave me a gift, Taylor. You said what was true, and you do that for me over and over. You perpetually lift my eyes to the better thing. So I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for your friendship, and I want to thank you for being exactly who you are. You are a gift to people, including to my own darn self. So thank you.
Well, now I'm crying.
Well, we'll sign off then. I adore you.
So grateful to you. And I just, yeah, I mean, my life would be massively different had you not entered it. And I would have never written a book. I'll tell you that for sure. And you could say that too. Yeah, you could, but you could say, oh, Bob encouraged you. Well, Bob was telling me for years to write, and I never did.
I think you're giving me way too much credit. You did all the hard work, but I'm just grateful to have a front row seat. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for being you. Say hi to Katie and the girls and come back soon.
I will. Anytime. As long as I can get the shed unlocked.